Kylian Mbappé always tried to stay out of controversy. But when a simple interview on American late-night TV turned into a joke about his faith, the world was watching. And what he did next caught everyone by surprise. Let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from today? Kylian Mbappé was halfway through his morning coffee when his agent Karim called. The tone in his voice was odd, cheerful, but cautious. Mate, you've been invited to The Tonight Show, Jimmy Fallon, New York next week. Mbappé blinked. Me? On a comedy show? Yes, they said it's a relaxed chat, bit of fun, some football talk, maybe a game segment. Big exposure. Mbappé took a moment. He wasn't new to interviews, Sky Sports, BBC, even CNN, but this was different. Fallon was comedy, jokes, and millions of viewers in the US. I don't know, Karim, he said. It's not really my scene. That's exactly why it might be good, Kylian, Karim replied. Let people see your lighter side. You've got fans in America too. Mbappé glanced at the window. A grey Paris sky loomed above the training ground. He sipped his coffee. All right, let's do it. The days before the show were a blur of briefings, wardrobe choices, and gentle warnings from his PR team. They love jokes. Don't take things personally. Stay relaxed. If you don't want to answer something, just smile. Don't mention religion too much. Americans can be sensitive. Mbappé nodded politely, but the last point lingered. Not talk about religion. That was like asking him not to breathe. His faith wasn't something he shouted from rooftops. It was just there, woven into his routine, his calm, his life. But, fine, he'd go with the flow. New York hit him like a warm slap. After weeks of cold rain in France, the city felt alive. His hotel overlooked Times Square, blaring light and motion 24/7. People stopped him on the street. Kids asked for selfies. One man shouted, "Mbappé, you're a legend." The day of the show, he arrived at 30 Rockefeller Plaza with his small team. Backstage was bustling. Technicians, makeup artists, assistants with clipboards. A young woman named Mandy met him with a headset and a bright smile. "We're so excited to have you, Kylian. You'll be on after the comedy bit with the fake dog mayor. Should be a laugh." He smiled. "Fake dog mayor? Yeah, it's a thing. Don't worry." She led him to a dressing room with fruit, bottled water, and a screen showing the live taping. Karim popped in. "You good?" "I think so," Mbappé said. "You don't have to be anyone but yourself." "Yeah." Mbappé nodded, though his stomach was tight. He wasn't scared, just wary. These shows could flip in a second. One comment, one joke, and the internet would explode. He watched Fallon's monologue through the screen. Quick-fire jokes, exaggerated faces, crowd laughing on cue. It was a different world. Then came the knock. "You're up." The stage was colder than it looked. Lights beamed into his eyes. The audience clapped as Jimmy Fallon greeted him with that trademark energy. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kylian Mbappé." Mbappé walked out with a soft smile, shook Fallon's hand, and took his seat. The chair was strangely low, and the table felt huge. "Man, you're like actual royalty in Paris," Fallon grinned. Mbappé chuckled. "Only during match days." Fallon laughed. "Hey, that's fair. You've scored some of the most amazing in goals. But be honest, have you ever faked an injury just to avoid interviews?" The audience laughed. Mbappé grinned. "No, but I've thought about it." It was going well. They talked football, the Parc des Princes, his sister's obsession with cartoons, even his dislike of American pizza. The crowd was loving it. Then came the curveball. "So, Kylian," Fallon said, shifting his tone slightly, "you pray 5 times a day, right?" Mbappé nodded. "That's correct." Fallon leaned in. "When do you fit that in? Halftime?" "Before corners. I mean, if I prayed 5 times a day, I'd forget my Netflix password." The audience laughed a little nervously. Mbappé paused just for a second, then smiled politely. "I manage. It's not about schedule, it's about rhythm." Fallon gave a thumbs up. "That's cool, man. Hey, as long as you're not praying for Paris to win penalties." Another round of laughter. Mbappé laughed lightly, but inside, something shifted. Not offended, just aware. The segment wrapped soon after. Soon. Fallon thanked him, the crowd clapped, and Mbappé waved as the cameras faded to black. Backstage, Mandy met him with a water bottle. "You were great." He nodded but said little. Karim raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" Mbappé thought for a moment. "Yeah, I think I want to say something next time." Karim looked at him curiously but didn't push it. Mbappé looked at the reflection in the mirror, calm, composed, and more certain than ever. "I'll know when it's the right moment." The next morning, Mbappé woke up to the sound of his phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. Dozens of notifications from Twitter, Instagram, and WhatsApp. Mentions, retweets, clips from the Fallon show. One particular clip had gone viral. The moment Fallon made the joke about Mbappé's prayers. It was already being shared with captions like "awkward," "uncomfortable laugh," and "crossed a line." He scrolled through the comments. Some found it funny, others didn't. Mbappé put the phone down and got up. From the hotel window, the city buzzed like nothing had happened. But in his chest, something had shifted. Later that day, he met Karim and the Paris media team for lunch. They were already seated, sipping tea in a quiet restaurant in Midtown. "You saw the clip?" Karim asked. "I did. You were brilliant, Kylian. Calm, respectful. Everyone's saying you handled it with class." Mbappé nodded slowly. "Still, something about it bothered me." There was a pause. One of the PR reps spoke. "Look, Fallon's show is comedy. It wasn't personal. He jokes about everyone." "I know," Mbappé said. "But there's a difference between joking about football and joking about faith." Back in Paris, a few days later, Mbappé returned to his usual routine: training, recovery, team meetings. The Fallon moment faded from the headlines, replaced by transfer rumors and weekend fixtures. But every now and then, the clip resurfaced. People debated it online. Was Fallon mocking? Was Mbappé too passive? Did the moment deserve more attention? The conversation kept simmering. One afternoon during a recovery session at the training ground, Mbappé sat with his teammates Neymar and Marquinhos in the lounge. The Fallon clip came up again on a football podcast they were watching. "You handled that well, mate," Neymar said, turning to him. "Honestly," Mbappé smiled faintly. "Thanks," Marquinhos chimed in. "Still, if it were me, I might have fired back. Not going to lie," Mbappé chuckled. "That's why you're not invited on late-night TV." The room laughed, but the thought lingered in Mbappé's mind. Not the idea of confrontation, but the idea of clarity. Maybe the real issue wasn't Fallon's joke. Maybe it was the silence that followed. 2 weeks later, an email came through. Fallon's team again. They wanted to invite Mbappé back this time for a special charity edition featuring athletes from different countries. Karim raised an eyebrow when he saw it. "You want to do it?" Mbappé didn't hesitate. "Yes, but I'd like a few minutes to speak freely at the end." "About football?" Karim asked. "No, about perspective." Karim nodded. "Let me work it out with them." The return to New York felt different, more grounded. This time Mbappé didn't bring his media team, just Karim and a quiet confidence. The studio buzzed as usual. Fallon greeted him in the dressing room before the show. "Kylian, glad to have you back, man. You really blew up last time." Mbappé smiled. "I noticed." Fallon gave him a quick hug. "Hope you didn't take the prayer joke the wrong way. We mess with everyone, but even the Pope." "I know," Mbappé said, "but I do want to say something tonight. Not angry, just honest." Fallon nodded, perhaps sensing a shift in tone. "Of course, the floor's yours, mate." The show began light as always. A few sketches, a silly game involving balancing footballs on spoons. Fallon kept the tone respectful. Then, towards the end of Mbappé's segment, Fallon gestured to him. "Kylian, I hear you've got something you want to share with us before we wrap up." Mbappé leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on his knees. "Yeah," he said. "It's nothing dramatic. I just wanted to speak, not as a footballer, But as a human being, the audience quieted. Even Fallon seemed more still than usual. A couple of weeks ago, Mbappé continued, we had a laugh here. You joked about my prayer routine, and I get it. This is a comedy show. But I realized later that a lot of people didn't laugh. Some felt hurt, others felt confused. He paused. I'm not offended by jokes. I've had fans sing about me being Muslim in a positive way. That means a lot. But I do think sometimes we use laughter to skip over understanding. And faith, for me, isn't a costume or a punchline, Mbappé added. It's how I center myself, how I stay grounded when everything else is noise. The room was quiet. Even the camera crew had stopped moving. You don't have to agree with what I believe, Mbappé went on. That's never been the point. But if we can listen with curiosity instead of humor alone, maybe we learn something new about each other. He sat back. Fallon looked slightly stunned, but not uncomfortable. He nodded slowly. That was... wow. Thanks for saying that, Fallon said. Mbappé offered a small smile. Thanks for letting me. The audience clapped, not wildly, but thoughtfully. It was the kind of applause that said more than noise ever could. Backstage, a young intern approached Mbappé as he was leaving. I just wanted to say I'm Muslim too. I've never heard someone say that on TV like that. Thank you. Mbappé smiled. You're welcome. Keep being yourself. Karim caught up with him by the car. You think it landed? Mbappé looked out at the New York skyline. I think it planted something. The next morning, social media was on fire. Clips of Mbappé's heartfelt message on Fallon's show were everywhere. No flashy graphics, no dramatic music, just him speaking plainly. People from all backgrounds shared it. Some called it the most sincere moment on American TV that year. Others said it made them rethink how they talk about religion in everyday life. The Paris training ground was unusually quiet when Mbappé arrived. A few teammates greeted him with nods and smiles. Pochettino passed him in the hallway and patted his shoulder. Well done, he said simply. That was a proper moment. By lunchtime, the press had picked it up. CNN ran a headline. Mbappé brings late night to a standstill, and not with football. The Guardian wrote, humor meets faith. Mbappe's calm changes the tone. And on Twitter, even comedians chimed in. Sarah Silverman tweeted, that was beautiful. No preachiness, no drama, just class. Hassan Minhaj posted, that's how you speak from the heart. Respect Kylian. But one comment struck him more than the others. It was a message from a young Jewish comedian who simply wrote, you didn't speak just for Muslims last night. You spoke for anyone who's ever had to laugh off what matters to them. That one stayed with him. Later that week, Mbappe's team received a request from a university in Chicago to use his speech in a new course on modern interfaith dialogue. Then a school in Toronto emailed asking if they could show the clip during the Cultural Awareness Week. Karim smiled when reading the messages aloud. You realize what you've started, don't you? Mbappé shrugged. I didn't start anything. I just told the truth. At home, things were quieter. Mbappé's wife had watched the show live and said little after it aired. But that night, as they sat side by side on the sofa, she gently touched his hand. You did something important. He looked at her unsure. You made space, she continued, for people who are always made to feel other. You didn't argue. You didn't lecture, you just stood firm. He didn't say much, just smiled. And it felt like the conversation was done until the next day. Jimmy Fallon called him. Not a PR email, not his agent, Fallon himself. Hey, Kylian, listen. I've been thinking about what you said a lot. Mbappé stood quietly in his kitchen. I've made jokes about everything under the sun for years, Fallon continued. Religion, politics, even myself, but I think I missed something with you. I wasn't trying to be mean, but I also wasn't trying to understand. Mbappé spoke gently. It's easy to joke when you're not carrying it. Fallon paused. Yeah, that's what hit me. He went on to say he was planning to address it on his next show, not in a dramatic apology, just an honest reflection. He didn't want to make Mbappé the center of it again, but he wanted to set a different tone. I don't know if it'll change anything, Fallon said. But thanks for not embarrassing me. Mbappé smiled. I wasn't trying to win. Anything, just hold my ground. They hung up. The next night, Fallon opened his show with a new segment. No monologue tonight, he began, just a thought. He explained, without defensiveness, that he had learned something from Mbappé, that sometimes we rush into humor because we're uncomfortable with depth, and that moments like the one on his show weren't meant to be viral. They were meant to be respected. The audience clapped slowly. It wasn't his usual start, but it felt real. At the Paris training ground, the team watched it on someone's phone during lunch. Fair play to him, said Marquinhos. Not many would admit that, added Neymar. Mbappé just kept chewing his pasta. Weeks passed. The buzz died down, but something subtle remained. An email came from a grassroots coach in Lyon telling Mbappé that one of his young players, a shy boy who used to avoid praying at school, had now started using an empty classroom at lunch. He said it was because you made it look okay. Cairo, a charity that offered football programs to underprivileged children, reached out. They wanted Mbappé to be the face of a campaign called Play with Purpose. And in London, a well-known atheist columnist who had once criticized public prayer wrote a column titled Learning to Listen from a Footballer. Mbappé never replied to most of these messages. He didn't need to. The point wasn't to keep the spotlight. The point was what came after. One morning, walking through Paris city centre with a cap low over his face, Mbappé heard a street performer playing a familiar tune. He paused. It was a quiet, instrumental version of You'll Never Walk Alone. He dropped a note in the guitar case. The man looked up and smiled. "Thank you," he said, "and not just for the football." Mbappé nodded. "Cheers, mate," and kept walking. Later that evening, he wrote something in his notes app. Not for a speech, not for the press, just for himself. I didn't plan a moment. I just refused to let mine be taken away. He locked his phone, put it down, and went to get ready for training. The noise had passed, the message had not, and that, he thought, was enough. It was a quiet Sunday evening in Paris when Mbappé took a rare moment for himself. The house was still, his daughter already asleep upstairs, and a soft drizzle tapped gently against the window. He sat on the floor, not the couch, legs crossed, cup of tea in hand. No interviews, no games, no noise, just the comfort of stillness. He hadn't spoken publicly about the Fallon episode in weeks, but every now and then a reminder would find him. A message from a fan, a comment online, a quiet nod from someone in a crowd. It was never loud, but it was steady. That night, he received a short video from Karim. "Thought you'd like this," the message said. It was from a youth football tournament in Lyon. A kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old, had just scored a goal and jogged to the sideline. Instead of celebrating with a knee slide or fist pump, the boy paused, turned toward the halfway line, and offered a short prayer. No one laughed, no one jeered. In fact, the crowd clapped. Mbappé watched it twice. He smiled, not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple and unafraid. A few days later, Fallon's team reached out one last time. They were producing a special year-end segment called Moments That Mattered. The producers wanted to include Mbappé's speech in a short montage. No interviews, no promotion, just a few seconds that had meant something. He gave his quiet approval. And on New Year's Eve, as fireworks lit up the skyline over Paris, the clip aired. Mbappé sitting calmly on that blue chair, saying the words that had started it all. Faith isn't about schedule, it's about rhythm. No commentary, no explanation, just the moment. A week later, Mbappé was at Parc des Princes, walking through the tunnel ahead of a home match. As he passed the ball boy stationed at the edge of the pitch, the boy looked up. "I saw your video," he said softly. Mbappé paused. "Which one?" "The one where you talked not about football." Mbappé smiled. That one." The boy hesitated. "My granddad didn't understand why I don't celebrate Christmas like the others, but after watching you," he said, "maybe it's just a different rhythm." Mbappé bent slightly, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Tell your granddad that's exactly it." That night, Paris won 2-0. Mbappé assisted one and scored another, a curling shot into the top corner that left the keeper rooted. The crowd roared as they always did. Flags waved, songs rang out, and for a brief second Mbappé looked up to the sky, hand to his chest. Not for the cameras, just for him. Weeks later, Mbappé was invited to speak, not on television, but in a recorded message for a quiet ceremony hosted by a mosque in Paris. They had created a new initiative offering support for young Muslims navigating public school life across France. They titled the program "Stand Quietly." His message was simple. You don't have to be loud to be strong. You don't need applause to know your worth. Just stand quietly and stay true. In the end, Mbappé didn't become a political figure. He didn't go on a speaking tour. He didn't write a book. He just kept playing football, showing up, and living by the rhythm that shaped him. But across stadiums and schools, homes and streets, something had shifted. A little more space, a little more respect, a little more room to be different without having to explain it all the time. That was enough. Kylian Mbappe's moment on Fallon showed the world that standing firm in your beliefs doesn't require loud statements, just quiet conviction. His message has sparked conversations about respect, faith, and understanding. What do you think about Mbappe's powerful response? Have you ever had a moment where you chose to stand firm in your own beliefs? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to think differently. Let's keep the conversation going.